Let's look at DSMA for rounding decimals. Rounding decimals is critical to your grade. My math lab, or my stat lab, excuse me, is going to count it wrong if you round wrong. So you could do all the work for a statistics problem and then round it wrong in the end, and it's going to count that wrong. So we have to have this rounding decimals down. And unfortunately, the calculator is not going to do that for you. So this is a really good visual. I like this visual. What happens is you're heading up the hill, right? And so if the next number after where you're rounding is less than 5, then you are going to just roll right back down. But if you hit 5 or greater, then you're going to go over the hump and head to the next number. So let's talk about this. If I have, let's say I have 2.13. Okay, and I want to round to the tenths. So remember the tenths is right here. That's the first one. We don't have a oneths. We've got tenths, hundredths, thousandths. So the tenth spot is where we want to round. So we need to look at the very next number. Well, the very next number is a 3. So a 3 on this chart means that we have not headed up over the hump, and so we're going to roll back down and stay at 2.1. So if we go to round, we would be at 2.1. So let's try another one. Let's say I had 2. I'm trying to get that point. The stylus is really giving me trouble. 2.37. And again, I want to round to the 10th place. So I want to round at the first digit after the decimal place. That's my 10th place. I need to look at the very next number. Well, the very next number is 7. So 7 means that I went up and over the hill, so I'm going to roll on down to the next spot. So what I'm going to do is round up to 2.4. Okay, because that 37 is closer to 40 than it is to 30. Okay, so it's just a good visual if you're not real good with rounding or if it's been a long time. All right, here's a reminder again of where the decimal point is and what's on the right, what's on the left. So on the right, we have tenths, hundredths, thousandths, 10,000ths. So remember that that also tells us if we're switching to fractions, how many zeros need to be in the denominator. Notice all of them have a THS. So some of the problems are going to say round to 2 decimal places. That would mean hundredths, or sometimes they're going to literally say round to the hundredths or round to the thousandths. And so we have to be used to either way. On the left-hand side, we have our ones, tens, hundreds, thousands, 10,000s, 100,000, million, goes all the way up to billions and trillions. Okay. Right, so we're going to take 9.51, change this to words. So I learned this wrong, and I've been saying it wrong all my life. And my co-teacher, Mr. Syme, finally, after working with him for like 5 years, finally told me how much that bugged him. And so I've worked really hard to fix it, but I don't always. I've caught myself. The and goes where the decimal is. So let's say I gave you this word, gave you this number. That is 250. And I grew up saying 250, but that is wrong. The and goes with the decimal. I actually surveyed my parents to see where I got that from, and sure enough, I got it from my parents, but it's wrong. Don't do it. All right, so we've got 9 and so we know we want 9 and we have 2 digits to the right of the decimal place. So remember that's going to be tenths and then hundredths. So I'm going to have 51 hundredths. So it looks like A, 9 and 51 hundredths. Let's try another one. All right, they gave me negative 0.802. They want me to change this to words. So I know I have 3 digits to the right of the decimal. So that is tenths, hundredths, thousandths. Make sure you have the THS because the right side has the THS, not the left side. So that means I have negative 802 thousandths. Looks like D. Be careful, they gave us C to try to trick us, but that would be on the left-hand side, excuse me, gotta know my right from my left, on the left-hand side if it doesn't have the THS, but we wanna be on the right-hand side. The instructions say round the decimal to the nearest tenth. We have 0.64. Well, the 10th spot would be right here where the 6 is. That means we have to look at the very next number and think of that visual, if you want, of heading up the hill. Well, we only went to 4, which is right here, so we did not go over the hill, and therefore we are going to round down to 0.6. So that is rounding to the nearest tenth. They gave me 0.5284, asked me to round to the nearest thousand. So I have tens, hundreds, thousand. So I want to round at the 8. That means I have to look at the very next number to see if I'm going to round down or round up. Well, since it's 4, 4 is less than 5. That tells me that I am going to round down to 528 thousandths. If that had been a 7 on the end, I would round up to 529 thousandths. Now, a lot of times in word problems, they want dollars and cents. So dollars and cents means that we'd have 2 decimal places. If they say round to the nearest dollar, like this one, then we're going to have no decimals. So since we want to round to the nearest dollar, that would be the 1 spot right here. We don't want any decimal, but we do need to look at the next number. It's a 9, so that means we're going to have to round up because we're at 96 cents. It's almost $1. So we're going to go ahead and round up to $89. All right, so definitely statistics class is a reading class. You have to really watch of what they want, because not only do you have to do all the work to get the problem done, then you have to look at the fine print and see how they want the data to be presented. So on this one, it asks us to take this number and round to the nearest cent. So nearest cent means 2 decimal places. That means we're going to stop after 2 decimal places. So we're going to change this 7 maybe, or maybe not. We're going to look at the very next number to see. Well, the next number is 7. So we, since that's 5 or greater, we're going to go ahead and round up. And so this would round up to 38 cents. And that's what's going to go here in the box. Well, not the dollar sign, just the 0.38. A small hard drive measures 0.5274 centimeters across. Round this number to the nearest tenth. Okay, so nearest tenth means I'm going to round to this first decimal place. I want to look at the very next number. Well, the very next number is only 2. Therefore, I'm going to stay with the 5. I'm not going to round up to 6. I'm going to stay at 0.5. A planet makes a complete orbit around a star every 223.389 days. Round this figure to the nearest whole day. Okay, so the nearest whole day would be the 1 spot. We need to look at the very next number, which is a 3. I didn't quite get to the 5. Therefore, I'm going to round down and I'm going to stay at 223 days. Okay, so when they say nearest whole anything, that means the ones. That means that you're not going to have any decimals. During an experiment, the following times and seconds were recorded. So I have 6 different times there. Find the mean. All right, for the mean, what we're going to do is we're going to add all of those numbers together. And then we're going to divide by how many numbers we have. Looks like we have 6. So if we add those up, we get 39 divided by 6, which gives us 6.5. Hopefully I did that right. You guys can double check me. And then they asked me, so this is an average, right? It's a mean. They asked me to round to 1 decimal place, right? The fine print is always right here next to the box. So this says round to 1 decimal place. It's already rounded to 1 decimal place. And so we are good to go. All right, one year, farmers received an average of $13.845 per bushel of wheat. How much did a farmer receive for selling 100 bushels of wheat? Okay, so each bushel of wheat, they receive $13.84.5, but they sold 100. So all we're going to do is multiply by 100. And that tells us that they made 1,384 and 50 cents. Now, since they want it round to the nearest cents, we're going to go ahead and put that 0 on the bottom. If you multiply this, you would get the 1,384.5. But since they want nearest cent, we're going to go ahead and show both decimals. And that's our answer. There are approximately 39.37 inches in 1 meter. How many meters are there in 150 inches? All right, there's a couple ways to do this. If you've been taught a different way, you go for it. I like to look at proportions. So I'm going to look at inches per meter equal to inches per meter. So on the first sentence, they gave me 39.37 inches are in 1 meter. On the other side, I have 150 inches, and I don't know how many meters, so I'm going to put X. Okay, so on both, I have inches over meters. You have to do that. You can't mix them up. So I have inches over meter and inches over meter. So I have 39.37 inches in 1 meter. And then on the other side, I have 150 inches over I don't know how many meters. So what I'm going to do now is what we call cross multiply. So I'm going to take 39.37x is equal to 1 times 150. Okay, but I'm looking for x. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide both sides by 39.37 because I want just x. Let me pop that in the calculator real quick. Okay, that gives me 3.810000762. Ooh, lots going on there. but I want to round to the nearest tenth. So I want to round to this first decimal place. The number after is a 1. Therefore, I'm going to round to 3.8 or 3 and 8 tenths.